All right, we left off last time talking about small town communities and Cuba, Kansas, and the culture that has to do with small towns. But we had to figure out the problem that small towns in Kansas were facing, and that was a shrinking population. So let's go over our topics and figure out exactly what is happening in Kansas. Go ahead and talk about the what's not keeping pace in Kansas.
50 counties lost population in 1990 to 2000.
So we had 50 counties lost population. Say that again.
From 1990 to 2000.
Okay, so in a 10-year span, okay, that's a lot. In fact, guys, there's 104, I want to say 105 counties in Kansas. 104 counties in Kansas, I believe it is. 105? Okay, I was off by one. 105 counties in Kansas. That's almost half the counties in Kansas losing population. That's a problem. What else about not keeping pace was in there?
Small counties lost population while bigger counties gained more.
Let's talk. This is interesting. This is one right here. Smaller counties lost population. Bigger counties gain. Now, if we were to look on a map, and I'd like to look on a map here, find it. There it is. If we were to look on a map, we're going to see here the counties that lost population, but the area I want to start focusing in is some of these ones that aren't colored red. Now, we're not going to focus out here in western Kansas, okay? We're not going to focus here, okay? But I want you to look at this, and we're going to see all these red counties lost population. Now, we're in Pottawatomie County, but Wamigos, we're not losing population, okay? And that's a good thing. We're very close to Manhattan in proximity. We have a good location. We have a lot going for our town. But in the same sense, we're not gaining people hand over fist here, okay? It's not happening, but we're not losing. But here's the other thing you have to think about in Pottawatomie County. You got towns like Westmoreland, St. George, okay? St. Mary's. You have all these small towns in our county that are losing. Well, maybe it's just one town, okay? And if you think about all the growth that we have, I'd love to see the study. I need to check up on this. Think about the growth. It's not necessarily in town as much as it is in the housing developments outside in the country. Okay? Now, I'm not sure. I'd have to look on Elm Slough. I don't know if I live on Elm Slough, if I'm included in the Wamego population or not, being since I'm out. Think so? Think so? 60% sure? All right. Well,
Yes, we are.
yeah. Okay. But here's what I want you to look at. These are the towns that you have to look at. Shawnee County, Riley County, Geary County, Sedgwick County, Saline County, Johnson County, Wyandotte County. This is your Kansas cities. This is your Manhattan. Okay? This is your Salina, Wichita. Okay? This is where the growth is happening. This is where they're not declining. Why? Bigger cities. You're talking Wichita, 500,000-600,000 people. Salina, I think, is approaching. Now, don't quote me on this. I want to say there are 70 or 80,000 people. Manhattan is a 60 to 70,000 population when K-State's in session. Kansas City, over 2 million people. This is where the growth is happening, and especially in here, your northern counties is where you're having problems. My hometown, this is where obviously Cuba, Kansas is. My hometown is slightly above it. Actually, Cuba would be more over here. My hometown used to be around, close to 3,000 people probably 20 years ago. Now they're looking at about 2,000 people, a little over that. So quite a bit of decline in 20 years. 800, 900 people. Yeah.
So one of the reasons, okay, Belleville, yeah, they have some jobs like, like a grocery store or something like that, but.
Well, here's the deal.
Most of the jobs are in like, Riley County and, or Manhattan.
Here's the problem in trading. My hometown had a big business in it. It's called Precision Dynamics. Big plant, big company. In fact, it employed probably, and I'm probably going to be wrong on this, I'd have to talk to my dad. I wanted to say it employed 150 to 200 people, maybe more. I could be wrong on this. Plant shut down and moved. Well, there's 200 families that are impacted by that job, that company being moved. So right there, in that 1 year, that was a big hit to the community. Okay, so that's a good point on that. Anything else for not keeping pace that we wanted to add to it? Or are we good with that? Okay, counties, they're losing population at a rapid pace. Leaders wanted. Why are they needing leaders? Let's talk about this one. Why are small towns needing leaders? Why are small towns needing leaders?
Well, like, in the, 150 club, right, in Flamingo, like, there's a bunch of leaders that do, like, things like the fireworks, and they look kind of direct, kind of like the festivals and stuff.
So you're saying, what did you write down?
Oh,
I get what you're saying. It's a good point.
Businesses, like, if you have a leader for a business, it'll keep on building up the business.
Okay, we'll come back to him. What do we got? What are we going to put here? Say that again louder. Community needs vision. Community needs a vision. I like that. What do you mean a vision? What's this word vision? What do you mean by vision? Why does a community need a vision? What can a vision be?
To like have like hope, so then like people don't like, oh, we're gonna lose all the population.
Okay, we're getting there, yeah. What could a vision be? As a community in Wamego, we have a vision of what we want to be as a community. What could a vision be? It could be hope. What else?
Like, imagine making a business up and running or something.
Okay.
A plan.
A plan. Oh, that's awesome. It can be a plan of where you want your town to be. A plan for Wamego is to continue to bring people in our community. As a town in Wamego, we want people to come to our festivals, to visit our town, and say, wow, what a really great community. I'd like to live here. And that's happened before. A lot, actually. A vision and a plan for Cuba could be just what? They're not necessarily expecting people to come in and move. What is their vision compared to ours? What would their vision be compared to ours? What could their vision be? A town of 180 people versus a town of 4,500. What's their vision?
That people don't move out of the town.
We don't want people to move out. To stay what we are. Don't completely shrink up and die. Okay? Towns have to have visions in order to survive or grow. so to say. What else about leaders? What else about leaders?
People keep, they need leaders to help the function of town.
What's that?
They need leaders to help the function of town, so it doesn't go haywire.
To keep the town functioning. I want to go back to what Trayton said. Did you have your hand up?
Like, communities need to have leaders because they can have like the right attitude.
I think that's a good one. They have to have the right leaders. If you don't have that, you need to get it down. Let's talk about this one. Trayton said earlier, you got to have the right volunteers in place. You got to have the right people in place in order to make a town function. Okay? Look at Wamego. What a perfect example. What a perfect example. Why do we have, you were at anybody go to Oktoberfest this weekend? Big crowd, right? I thought so. You been to Tulip Festival before? Big crowds, right? You been to the 4th of July before? Huge crowds, right? What are we doing? Why do we have such a successful festivals? Why do we? Why do we have these great festivals?
Because we have good leaders.
We have great leaders. We have leaders with vision. Okay, I know the chamber director, and I knew he had a vision of what he wanted Oktoberfest to be. And there were a lot of changes to Oktoberfest this year, weren't there? It was different than in years past. And that's because of visions that people have, of what they want it to be, what they envision it to be.
What was the changes? I didn't go.
We'll talk about it here when we're done with this one, okay? But you have to have the right people in place. How many of you have a family member or know someone who volunteers for a festival in Wamego, Kansas? 4th of July, Tulip Festival, Oktoberfest. Raise your hand if they volunteered. If you know someone, a neighbor, a friend's parent. Raise your hand high if you know somebody that's on the fireworks, the group that shoots the fireworks off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. We have 3, 6, 8, 10, 13. Half the room knew somebody. I'll put my name in that. I know somebody too. Half the room knows a volunteer in our community. You have to have good people running your community, and you have to have people with a vision. Okay? Now, why should we care about shrinking populations in Kansas? Why should we care? And I think that's important because you're the next community planners. You're the next volunteers. You're the next city council members. You're the next mayors. You're the next business leaders in Kansas. Why should you care? Why should you care if you're going to be these things in these towns in the future in the next 10 to 20 years?
Because you want somebody in your town?
Why should you care? You're right. Yes, sir.
Kansas could not survive without small towns.
Kansas can't survive without small towns. Why do you think that is?
Because we only have like 5 big cities, and if we have all of our small towns survive, everybody will probably move to different states and stuff.
We'd lose population. What is our major industry in Kansas? Farming. Agriculture. But you guys think of agriculture, when I talk about the agricultural industry, you guys are thinking of farmers. You're not thinking of everything that's tied into it. Do we have implement dealers in Wamego? CTI and Can-Equip. How many know someone that works at CTI or Can-Equip? Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 13 in the room. How many know someone that works at a bank in Wamego? Raise your hand. Oh boy, look at this. 8. Okay. How many know someone that works at a co-op or a grain elevator? Wow. Holy smokes, 7. Okay? Suddenly, how many of your family members work at something that I just said? Banks, co-ops, implement dealers. How many are involved in farming? Any families involved in farming? Suddenly, all of a sudden, we have half the room in here that's directly impacted by farming. If we lose our small towns, think about it. If we're losing population in our towns, I want you to think about this long and hard. If we're losing population in our town and they're moving from small towns to bigger cities, what are we also losing?
Farming.
Farmers. Why are we losing farmers?
Because, like, they're the farmers' daughters and want to go to, like, big city. Like, it's all to make money.
But why are we, okay, but great, but why are we losing farmers? Their kids are moving away for other things. Why are we losing farmers?
Well, then the farmers, the money, like, some farmers don't, like, money.
Okay, we're getting somewhere.
Also, like, let's say I don't want to farm, my sister don't want to farm. Well,
Okay.
then it's only like that. But then when he passes away, there's not money.
Somebody take over. Okay. You got a point there. If there's not money to be made, farmers aren't having success. Farmers make these communities go around, kids, whether you like it or not. They're the ones that are spending money in the communities. They're the ones that are going. I'd love to see a bank statistic in this town. How much business is done by farmers with the banks? Because without the farmers, the banks don't stay open in these communities. I don't think. Okay? Kansas can't survive without its small towns. Farming is our major industry. Okay? Yes?
Okay, and if like somebody were to buy that land, they might have other intentions for it, like sell it to somebody who
Right.
build houses on it.
Well, here's what's happening in a lot of smaller towns is the bigger farming operations, and I don't know, I'm not going to go into great detail, but the bigger farming, and I know this is happening up in north central Kansas, the bigger farming operations, I'm talking the big corporations that are in it to make loads of money, buy up all this land from the smaller farmer. Okay, and we have a lot of small farmers in this county, where it's been a generational farm passed down from their dad, and it was passed down from their dad and their dad, and it's a family farm. These large farm corporations are coming in and buying them up and doing it to make tons of money. And when you lose the small-time farmer, you're going to lose population. You're going to lose the, I don't know the way you put it, the Kansas touch, the small-town touch. And it's hard to explain if you haven't been a part of it. But that's the problem Kansas is having. Okay? Any other comments on why we should care? I know you probably have them. I need a lot of other people to get involved here real quick. What do you got down?
We need enough funds to provide food.
Okay, then that goes in. Farming is, why should we care about small towns, shrinking populations? If farmers are quitting because there's no money to be had and they're not having success and they're moving to bigger cities, agriculture is taking a hit. Okay, how many of you know someone that owns a business in Wamego? Raise your hand if you know someone that owns a store downtown or some kind of business. Okay? Raise your hand. Now, does their store stay open if farming's taking a hit in the area? If there's a drought, what's that mean for the businesses in Wamego? If there's a drought, what's that mean?
Well, like daylight donuts, it sounds weird, but if the farmers, if their wheat don't grow because of the drought, but usually, still daylight donuts is not.
Well, don't think of it in terms of getting the wheat out and the crops out to make stuff for us to eat. Think about this community. If there's a drought, that means farmers aren't making what? Money. which means money's not being spent where? In businesses. So these business owners in towns like ours, they depend upon farming to be good. Okay, my uncle owns Mid-America Truck Equipment up in north central Kansas. He depends upon when farming is not good, when there's droughts and farmers aren't making money and it's scarce. They fabricate and make truck beds, grain truck beds, flatbeds for trucks. If farmers aren't doing well, who's not spending money at his business, his company? Farmers. Farmers aren't going to go buy a new flatbed if they're not making money. Farmers aren't going to buy a new grain truck if wheat's not doing well and Milo's not doing well and corn and sorghum and soybeans. So farming, our towns are very dependent upon farming. So we're seeing shrinking populations in Kansas. A large part is a lot of these, the farmers are moving. A lot of the younger kids in these towns are moving to the bigger cities for jobs and more opportunity. If I have a business degree, if I just graduated from Kansas State with a marketing degree or a business administration degree, where do I have more opportunity? Here or in Kansas City to get a job? Kansas City, right? Bigger, more jobs, etc. So Kansas small towns are facing an uphill battle. How do we keep our towns to stay the same or even to grow? That's the problem we're going to get in. So now we're examining the unique situation that Cuba, Kansas is in. Not necessarily wanting to grow, but let's just keep this town going and don't let it die. Wamego is not quite in that situation. We're going to compare and contrast the two.